Thank you for joining us. You are a part of an elite group who recognizes that Black women's health should be at the forefront of the national conversation. We are mothers, daughters, activists, entrepreneurs, entertainers, corporate warriors, and more, who help boost the economy and often drive the national conversation. For 38 years, the Black Women's Health Imperative has strived to amplify our voices, help enact policy that protects us, research our issues, create programs that enhance our lives, and produce events like this one to ensure we keep the conversation going about the issues that matter to us most. So, let's get started with our program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's a Family Affair, where we're sharing ideas on how to get the family involved in meal planning. My name is Erin Taylor, and I'm also known as the Dish Diva, and I am a lifestyle coach with the National Diabetes Prevention Program, Change Your Lifestyle, Change Your Life, also known as CYL2. Now, CYL2 is a signature program of the Black Women's Health Imperative that is for us and by us to meet the needs of Black and Brown women seeking better health. So thanks so much for joining us today, and be sure to tell us where you're joining us from in the chat. And I'm here with some of the other CYL2 lifestyle coaches so that we can tackle the topic of meal planning and how that can be helpful with staying on track with your health goals. Now, at the end of our discussion, we will open the floor to answer a few questions from all of you. So start putting them in the chat as you think of those questions. All right, so on the panel today, we have Tiffany Phillips, who delivers our lifestyle change program through our partner, the Wellness Coalition in Montgomery, Alabama. And then our next guests are Keisha Daniels, who resides in Atlanta, Georgia, and Robert Richardson from Lafayette, Louisiana. And they both work as coaches with the Black Women's Health Imperative. All right, welcome, guys. Let's dive right in. Robert, I'm going to start with you. So growing up, did you even understand the concept of meal planning? Did that ever come up in your household?
Never. I grew up in a household where I grew up on McDonald's and fast food, and so my mother was in a successful corporate business, and my dad played professional football. So even though we had the resources, everything was on the go, and so my whole life I ate fast food. I overate, and being an oversized kid, being 6'8" now, and playing football, I was taught from football and also from sports that because I was an oversized child that I have to eat more than average child. So that turned into a lifelong lesson of binge eating and not knowing how to portion my food out. So of course, now at 35 years old, I'm in the best shape of my life. I've lost over nearly 200 pounds. And I was a contestant on the show of the 2019 Biggest Loser show. And so I've learned how to not only control eating but portion my foods, but also encourage my family to do the same.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. And I know that meal planning was not a thing. That was McDonald's was meal planning, right?
Well, in a lifestyle that's always on the go, always hectic, is whatever's convenient and easy was the go-to, And I completely understood that as a kid, but as a parent, I had to create a routine for not just for myself, but my 5-year-old. He meal preps now for his lunches.
Nice. Well, that's great because we're talking about getting the family involved with everything. So that's awesome to hear. Right. And Keisha, I want to hear from you next because it's the whole concept of meal planning. For us has never been around. And like Robert said, going to McDonald's was meal planning, and a lot of us are like always trying to eat on the go nowadays.
Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. And Robert, I just want to I want to congratulate you on that phenomenal weight loss. That's incredible. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I think, Erin, I'm probably maybe the oldest one on the broadcast this morning. So maybe I didn't have any formal introduction to meal planning, but I can tell you this, that my mother, I guess, set a good example when we were growing up in that she cooked every day. And of course, again, I'm a little older, so it's probably, that was before McDonald's was around. And the meals were always balanced. My mom always, she did do a double starch for a long time. We would always have rice. And Robert, you're from Lafayette, right?
Yes. So
So
I
you
just
don't have rice with everything, right? And so we would have rice, and then we would maybe have a double starch. But in addition to that, we always had a protein and we always had a vegetable. So when I considered your question, I thought, no, I didn't have a formal introduction to meal planning, but I think I had some visual cues as to how a plate should look. And as we got older, my mother realized we don't need this double starch. So she kind of switched that out. In addition to that, my maternal grandmother, had a ritual, and every other Saturday she went grocery shopping. That was, again, back in the day. And it was a big day because she was shopping for 2 weeks. And so I would go with her often on these excursions. And so that wasn't, again, any formal type of meal planning, but in a sense, I think it kind of orientated, gave me an orientation in terms of that you need to plan for your meals. Now, do I do that? In this modern era, I'm a work in progress, but I did have, I guess, some visual cues and some practical things that went on in the life or my life around me that told me that meal planning was something that you should do if you want your plate to look like this. So,
yes. Well, and I guess there was meal planning happening in your household, but it just wasn't named that. We didn't understand the concept of it back then, or it didn't have a particular name, but that's what people did, right? And we've gotten away from that so much with
we have
more sedentary lifestyles and more hectic lifestyles, and balancing a multitude of schedules. So it gets pretty busy. So it's about adapting and changing, right? And to get into this, to make it work for you and your household.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I do want to mention that Kisa here was part of our CYL2 program. And now she is a lifestyle coach for the program. So I love seeing the student becoming the teacher. So I appreciate you being here as a lifestyle coach and being able to present to other participants what you've learned. And for those of you that are watching, if you're not familiar with our CYL2 program, I mean, it's literally changing lives. It's not about quick fixes, but learning strategies and building habits over time that will prevent chronic diseases like prediabetes. The program is open to anyone that's eligible, and it's available virtually. So for our listeners, if you go to the BWHI website and take the prediabetes risk test, you can find out if you're eligible to become part of our CYL2 family, and then begin your own personal journey to better health. And you never know, after the program, you might just become a coach like Kisa.
Funny how life works, right?
Yeah. Well, Tiffany, I'd love to hear about you and what your introduction to meal planning was.
So my introduction to meal planning was, for me, I don't know why, when you said meal planning, I kept thinking about Big 60 cookies. Does anybody remember those? So it's this pack of cookies, and it was like 60 in there. And so we would be so excited to go to the grocery store with my mom, because we knew we were going to get the Big 60 cookies, my sisters and I, and all of us would get our own big bag of chips. And I'm sure, my mom, I'm sure she cooked, I lost my father when I was 7 years old to a car accident. And so my mom became, the single parent. So I believe it became more of like survival mode. And so there wasn't a lot of meal planning in the home. But my first introduction for me was when I decided to participate in bodybuilding competitions. And from that standpoint, the meal planning was very strict. It was 6 meals a day, and you planned those meals out. You had all your meals. But now, not being in that world, the bodybuilding world anymore, I still see the benefits of prepping, because I knew that when I prepped my meals, it helped me to reach my goal, and it kept me from not having any idea, the dreaded question, what's for dinner? And when we don't know, we tend to snack. That's when the parents like, let me rummage through the pantry and see if I can find some chips, some candy. So it taught me that it's important to have a plan, so you have some ideas, what you're going to eat.
Yes, absolutely. You have to have a plan. I think that's probably one of the biggest tips that we can, the biggest takeaway from this whole discussion is, You just have to have a plan, whatever it is. Now, all of you guys have very different backgrounds. You've all grown up differently, had different introductions to meal planning. And you can see just from the perspective of our participants in the CYL2 program, how relatable our coaches can be. So what I want to do is, you guys have all kind of developed and grown with this meal planning that you've been doing, or you're still in the process of doing it. So I want to ask you, what has been your biggest challenge when it comes to meal planning? And then how have you overcome it? And we can start with you, Robert.
Well, I'm at the phase that Tiffany was at bodybuilding right now, and it is not easy. As a matter of fact, like in my mind right now, thinking of, okay, after I get off this call, I'm in the kitchen again and have to prep for the rest of the week. And so my wife, on the other hand, yes, she has her own cold pressed juice company, but she's like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna cook my meals on the go. And so we have discussions with each other because I see the benefit. And I know I don't enforce what I do on anybody, but I see the benefit of prepping because I remember when I don't prep, I sometimes make the bad decisions. Like, okay, let's go out and find something. Let's go order something. But I said, okay, because my schedule now is so hectic, I have to learn how to adapt on the go if I forget a meal prep container while I'm out. So I do some experiments, or I download some healthy nutrition apps that you can download on your phone when you're on the go that can tell you, okay, eat this, not that, or you can gauge how to eat by prepping. And so it's become a routine for me. Is it easy? No, but it has benefited me when I'm on vacation, when I'm traveling for speaking engagements. So it's helping. It helps me, and also see how it's helping my 5-year-old, because growing up, like I said, I grew up on McDonald's, I grew up on fast food. And so it makes me excited to see him learn from my mistakes, because at 20 years old, I was put on blood pressure medications, high cholesterol medication. And I want to prevent that from happening to him. And taking the wrong footstep that his dad made growing up, and give him a healthy standard as he continues to develop as a young man. So is it easy? No, but I find it beneficial to help you in those times where you have to think on the go how to prep and how to eat when you go outside the house.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you're making it a habit. You've made it a habit.
I'm making it a habit. Now, as I told my wife, when I get seasoned, I'm not gonna say older. I'm gonna say seasoned, like I tell my mom, seasoned. Remember, season. When I get seasoned, I'm like, okay, look, I know how to eat. I'm not gonna prep, so let's just live life and enjoy life. And that's why I teach my clients. That's why when I start teaching people in my class, like, don't be afraid of food, and don't beat yourself up if you forget to prep. Just make good decisions. Always have your carbs, your protein, and your vegetables. Those 3 food groups, and your healthy fats. Just make sure you have that in one meal setting, and you'll be fine. Don't sit there and, oh my goodness, I don't have no meal prep. Don't, because that puts you in a cycle of, well, okay, I messed up again. Let me just try again later, or I messed up today. Let me try again tomorrow. Just make small adjustments every single day. And when you make those small adjustments, pat yourself on the back for a minute. Tell yourself, man, look what I did. Instead of getting a soda today, I actually decided to get some water. Like, encourage yourself on the go.
Yeah. And you made it such a good point, is like, don't beat yourself up.
Right.
And I think a lot of us take that all or nothing attitude, right? If I can't do it all, then I failed.
Right.
And so it's about having a good relationship with food too. Like, don't be afraid of the food.
Right.
The food is there to nourish you, but you just have to figure out what things that you need to take in that will help nourish your body.
Right.
Very good point. Yeah. Well, Kisa, what's the biggest challenge for you? And I know Robert mentioned, like, talking to his wife, getting his kids involved. What has been your biggest challenge, and how have you been working to overcome that?
Well, I'm still I'm a work in progress. Okay. I'm seasoned, Robert, but I'm a work in progress still. So, but I would say that my biggest challenge is motivation.
Yeah.
And how have I overcome that is I just had to adopt the just do it mentality. I mean, I am never probably ever going to want to meal prep because I just don't like the kitchen like that. I like to eat in the kitchen, right? My mother, to go back to her, she likes to cook. She enjoys that whole process. I like the end result, right? So I don't like the process, the chopping. Some people find chopping kind of therapeutic. I find cleaning therapeutic. I don't find chopping therapeutic, right? And then I'm too frugal to go and buy. I see the stuff, the pre-made stuff, and that is an option for some people, you know, in terms of overcoming. But I have to do the meal prep. So I just realized, Erin, that I'm never going to want to do this, but I try to think about, you know, the end result. Why am I doing this? And it feels so good when you have those meals prepped, right? Everybody knows that when you go to the fridge and it's ready for you, the salad is chopped up, and, you know, you have to be careful with that kind of stuff, because if you do it too soon and wash it, you know, it'll spoil on you. But it's just gratifying, and just gives you healthier options when it's already done. If you ask me to go to Mount Arabia, which is down the street from my house, I'll be ready a week in advance. You know, I don't need motivation there. But when it comes to meal prep, motivation just is not my thing. And again, I just tried to adopt that whole just do it mentality. Just do it. Think about the benefits of it.
Yeah, tapping into that why is really important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you have to figure out for yourself, like, why are you doing this, and what do you want the end result to be? And you have to keep reminding yourself of that, right? So yeah, I totally get that. Well, Tiffany, what has been your biggest challenge, and how are you working to overcome that?
I would say my biggest challenge is when it was just me, I feel like it was easier, you know, but then when you have your family right now, you have a husband and a toddler. She's my biggest challenge. you know, when they're when they're younger, they just eat what you give them. And then they decide to think for themselves, and then they're like, no, you know, that's green. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's like now she's like, if it doesn't look right, if it doesn't feel right. So it's like, girl, you know, and so it's challenging for me. And I try to become like this master magician, right? And chop stuff real small, or try to trick her where she like picks through it. I'm like, how does she know these things? You know, I try to do it when she's not looking, and she's like, something in this isn't right. So I would say, you know, just what's been my biggest challenge is finding food that my husband I enjoy, and the toddler enjoys. And it's a work in progress. Like Kisa was saying, I can't say that I have arrived, like, oh, I have this thing nailed down and my toddler's eating everything I put in front of her. But it's a work in progress. And I found that when I get her involved, when I let her help me pick it out or let her help me cook it, she's more vested. You know, she's like, oh, I'll try because I did it. You know, let me try what I fixed. So I found that helps if I can get her to join me.
Okay. Yeah, and I can totally relate to that toddler thing. I have a 2.5-year-old who ate everything, and then all of a sudden decided, "Ooh, this spinach in my mouth is gross." So I totally get it. But you know, one thing, and I like what you said about how helping, you know, getting them involved in the process, because I think that's kind of key as well, right? It's because they see it, they're doing something, they're making something, and then they're like, "Oh, maybe I want to eat it now." And I will say, in my experience, like, you know, my husband is a snacker. So of course, you know, my son wants a snack, but I'm like trying to eat the, you know, the veggies and hummus, and I have the celery and the carrots and the cucumbers. And so now he's like starting to like, oh, I want what mommy has, and going to my plate and trying them. And so it's just, it really is, they are going to mimic what you're doing.
Yes.
You know, they really are going to mimic what you're doing. So it's like, if you want them to eat well, you got to eat well yourself.
That's true.
And that becomes a challenge when the husband is not doing the same thing that you're doing.
Right.
I can relate.
Yes. Well, I think that kind of leads us into another question too, is, you know, there's always like that negative Nancy or negative Norman that, you know, somebody got like the sabotager in the house that doesn't go along with if you're on a healthy path, they're not necessarily on board. So how do you kind of work through that? And we can start with you, Tiffany.
Oh, that's hard. You know, I would say For me, it's like my husband, like you were saying, he's such a snacker and he's a baker. Like he loves to bake. So he's like always baking cinnamon rolls and pound cakes. And like he just bakes nonstop. And I mean, it's like, at Publix, they have the buy one, get one. Like the night before the flyer comes out, he's like, okay, what's on sale? I'm like, did Publix have anything good this week? He's like, yeah, they had a lot of stuff. And I'm like, that must mean it's all junk. I'm looking for the chicken breast. And he's like, oh, they got these chocolate covered pretzels and they got, just like all this stuff. And so he comes in with paydays and Reese's and these M&Ms. I'm like, sir, not shopping. I'm like, calm. And so it's still, it's always like, I feel like it's a balance, because it's like, I want to, when he bakes something, he's like, try this. This is so good, to support him in that and to like be supportive of what he enjoys. And that's something so I don't say no every time. So it's like this balance. It's challenging because if it's not there, you don't eat it. Right.
Yes.
And it's like pound cake will always be better than baked chicken, so it's like if it's in the house, it's like it calls out to you, right? And so just knowing that it's there, if I could just like don't bring it in the house, I would be good. So there's always this. And I will say, I bargain with him, well, if I try this, you have to try this, so we can kind of balance it out. But yeah, it can be, I just think it's it's always that temptation. Like he gets in the bed snacking at night. He's like, you want some? I do, but I can't. Yes, I do want some. Yes, I do. But I'm not gonna have any. So it's yeah. So it's like I find myself having to practice a lot of self-control and self-discipline. Just remember, what my my goals are, and not expect him to do what I'm doing, because his goals are clearly different from mine. So
because it's really hard to motivate other people when they don't have a reason to be motivated. You can't enforce what you want on them. So and that becomes a challenge in and of itself. And so just sticking with your why, your personal why, and just reminding yourself of that is definitely important. Well, Kisa, what about you? What is your experience with that?
My experience with that. So I will say, Tiffany, thank you. You just ministered to me. I too am part of my husband is a snacker club, and Erin had talked to us about her husband. I think my husband may be on this broadcast, so I plead the fifth. No, what was the question? What was the original?
You have somebody in the house that's not on board with your goals. Like, how do you overcome that? How do you work through that?
You have to do like Tiffany. You just have to chart your own course. And did I say this again? Disclaimer: I'm a work in progress, because Tiffany, I cave often. I just cave. And so then I just try to balance it out, but he's just like this huge snacker. But one of the things that I do most of the shopping, we're kind of switching roles now since my husband retired, but FloJo, y'all remember FloJo? Track star. FloJo, I remember years ago reading in, I think it was Jet, back when Jet's not even around anymore, but I think I read a quote from her in Jet that said, if I don't buy it, I won't try it. She was in like superb shape. It's just so baffling that she died, the way she did. But she said, if I don't buy it, I won't try it. And so I go in and out of that, where I'm in this cycle where I'm just not going to buy it. I'm not going to bring it. And I think you mentioned that, Tiffany. I'm not going to bring the temptation to my front door. And so that is a strategy that does work. Also, putting things in, if I buy some things, sometimes a strategy is to put it in the freezer. So, because I am one of those, I think, Erin, you mentioned those all or none people, working on that too. But if the cake is there on the counter, well, it's got to be, every day till it's done, right? I mean, you just got to keep slicing until it's done. But I figured out, there's this invention called the freezer, right? And you can stick something in there and it'll preserve it for a long time. And so it works really well for I like to have a scheduled sweet treat on Sundays. And so sometimes I might make a cake or a pie or something. But when in my really, a good frame of mind, I have the presence of mind to cut it up and portion it out rather and put it in the freezer. So I guess those are some strategies, but I'm listening. So thank you, Tiffany, for ministering to me. It's just that type of will, like you said, the willpower that it takes sometimes to be who you want to be, or to just to move it through as you want to move through. But also sometimes it's just removing the temptation. Just don't even, and it's hard you can't regulate other grown folk.
Yes.
We couldn't even regulate. We have our 18-year-old. He just turned 18, and you met Joe he was in the background in one of our meetings, Aaron, one day, but he just went to college, but he was working at Domino's. And so he would bring his butt up in here after getting off from work at 10 o'clock at night. Stuff. I mean, and of course he made it. So it was always going to be like, just, woo, it was, the breadsticks was like, you got this from Domino's, And so it would be hard, but there were many nights, I don't want it, Joe. I don't want it. Thank you. I don't want it. But that's how I do. I really did want it,
Right. It's like I do, but I don't.
But I really love, Kisa, your idea about putting in the freezer, because we don't want to say you can't ever indulge or you can't ever have a sweet treat. You know what I mean? But being able to regulate it, because if it's in the freezer, I'm not going to see it every day.
Yes.
And so if it's back there, I'm not going to see it and I'm not going to go to it. So I think I love that strategy there. Robert, I would love to hear how you've managed that. But I believe your wife, you said she does juicing. So it sounds like she's pretty healthy herself.
Yeah, she's there. She is healthy. But she's the opposite of me. She'll come in the room, we're trying to watch a movie, and she'll get this gourmet popcorn and she be eating it. I'm like, come on, babe. You don't eat that right in front of me. Like, you want some? No, I can't have none. Or she'll bring these little streusel waffle cookie thing with the I don't know what's in the middle of it. She's a sweet person. And so with Tiffany, when I heard cinnamon rolls, now my downfall is cookie dough and cinnamon rolls. I love cookies. I love cinnamon rolls. I love cookie dough. So, but there's one thing I learned growing up at a young age is that, in watching my seasoned people talk in person, is you cannot control the narrative on anybody. You can only control yourself.
That's right.
And a lot of times when those conversations would come up, I would see how they would say or start the conversation. Oh, you're going to look at you. You're going to die. Or you overweight. Look at you. That's why you'll never change. I'm like, so you're already putting more doubt in a person. You're already speaking negatively about them already. How do you know they're not trying,
Yeah.
So versus me getting on to my wife and, hey, you gotta be your brand. I want you to represent your brand. So I want you to monitor what you eat. I'm like, hey, okay, you obviously love sweets. You're a sweets person. So let's mix it up a little bit. Let's track what you're doing. Because for me, I know me. If she brings it in the house like that gourmet popcorn, I love popcorn. I'm gonna dip in it somehow. But I always know my coach right now. He comes out of nowhere. It's like
on the shoulder.
Speaking with God, and God is telling him like, "Hey, Robert's eating popcorn," and he'll call me like right on the spot, like, "Wait, how do you know I was doing that?" So it's all about balance to me. I have a coach now that understands that I love balance. And I'm not a person that's going to eat fast food. I still don't eat fried foods to this day. I live in Louisiana, and it's hard to avoid food, period. But I keep everything in the house balanced. And my 5-year-old, yes, he preps, but if he wants a cookie, I don't say, no, you can never have a cookie, son. No, have a cookie, man. Like, enjoy it, because it's balanced. So, and my advice for somebody who's has somebody in the household that's not on the same path, just be very patient with them and let them keep watching what you're doing, because eventually something's going to click.
Yes.
Like, my wife was with me as in high school. in college, and she saw when I was over 400 pounds, and she would tell me nicely, and I would get offended by it. It didn't take until I was in the hospital with 2 IVs, and I was at stroke levels where I finally woke up. Now, do I want people to get there? Of course not.
Right.
But sometimes people have to, like Ms. Daniel said, they have to walk their own journey.
Yep.
You can't enforce it on nobody. So that's my best advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, excuse me. I have something to say. Robert, you're taking it too far. It's Kisa, not Miss
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're taking it a little too far. And I want to know, so are you telling me you live in Lafayette and you don't eat boudin?
No, ma'am. Oh, no.
What?
You know,
You have to explain what that is.
For
those of us that don't know.
It's good.
It's a boudin ball by the side, and I have huge size of my hand, right? And it's fried and it's covered with rice and meat and all this goodness.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I don't mess with it as much, because I don't eat pork or any sausage as much anymore, because in my family and learning from going to the doctor, because as men, a lot of men like me and myself in the past, when you say doctor, I ran another way because I didn't want to know what's going on inside of my body.
Right.
I don't want to know what's happening. I don't want the doctor to give me bad news. Well, now I go so much that my doctor's like, Robert, you don't have to see me next month. I'm like, no, I need my blood work done. I want Robert, sit at home, be quiet. You're doing good. When I saw my levels, my cholesterol, I'm gonna go further than that, my testosterone levels, all that affects men as we get older. And so when we continue to consume certain food groups, you know, it keeps our testosterone, estrogen, all those levels in men unbalanced. That's why I always tell the men in my classes, keep a balance. You want to keep the scale balanced, you know? So pork is okay, but just in moderation. Personally, for me, I just stayed away from it because it scared me at one point because I was consuming it so much.
The boudins and everything. Yeah, Aaron, and the boudin that I grew up on, Robert, I don't even know if they were doing boudin balls when I was younger. They do the boudin balls now and they're deep fried, but it's also like a sausage, like a sausage. The old fashioned, you know. But to your point, you know, Robert, about staying away from that. My husband and I are both from Southeast Texas by way of South Louisiana. And so that's how we know about the boudins and all that good stuff. And I don't know if you know about Zumo sausages. Beaumont. And so he'll go home and he'll come back with a case of boudin, a case of sausage. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So now I'm meal planning around Zumo sausages and boudin, right? Because, you know, the last batch that he brought home, and I love both of my sister-in-laws, my sister-in-laws, but my sister-in-law, they're still there, and she just, you know, that's her baby brother, and she's gonna make sure he has it. But that freezer works. I'm telling y'all, you just put it at the back of the freezer, and those Zumo sausages and that boudin lasted us for a long time because I said, I'm not gonna just have this sitting in the fridge, you know, and trying to eat it before it goes bad. That's what
Especially a whole case of it.
Yes, I am not exaggerating.
I have a deep freezer in my garage, and that's where all the stuff that my wife be trying to, and she try to sneak all those sweets in the house. I'm like, hey. I need some room in the refrigerator inside the house. We got this huge deep freezer. You know, let's go ahead and put it out there. So, I agree.
And speaking of, I know the deep freezer kind of like leads me to another topic here is how can we like utilize, so we're talking about meal planning and what kind of tools would be needed. So you guys are talking about the freezer and how you can use that as a way to like store stuff and, you know, make it last a little bit longer. So when we talk about like the healthier foods, how can we use that deep freezer in that manner?
Well, for me, I prepped for 7 days. And so my clients were kind of shocked when I gave them a little insight. That's something that worked for me. So I prepped for 7 days. I put my rest of my meal preps in the deep freezer in the garage, and I bring it inside the house. And based off the weight of my meal preps that I put in the microwave, I defrost them, and it tastes just like I cooked them.
Okay.
And I also learned that if I don't get to the store, I'm not going to worry about it. And that means that if I don't go to the local produce mart because I'm so tired, then I'm not going to have my fruits and vegetables for the day, which I need for my digestive health. And so I've learned and from taking a couple courses that frozen fruit and vegetables are just as good as the ones that's grown out the ground, because 9 times out of 10, the frozen fruit and the vegetables that's picked first are the ones that's frozen in stores.
Yep.
And so I just started, I told my wife, I said, honey, can you add 2 pounds of mixed vegetables? Can you add 2 pounds of mixed fruit bags from the frozen section? So it's all in my house. And so having a deep freezer not only prevents you from snacking on those delicious items that you want all the time,
right?
But if you're trying to meal prep and you're on the go, if you have 2 hours free in your schedule, you want to put stuff in bags or containers or fruits and even label them for your day, that's a great way to help yourself. I mean, I have my stuff labeled. I meal prep on Saturday mornings, and I have my stuff done the rest of the week. So I have my snacks prepped, my lunch, my dinner, everything done. So I don't have to worry about what I'm eating. I'm not searching for it. I can focus on all my other tasks Monday through Saturday.
And that's such a good point too, is like, if you don't have to worry about it. So it reduces stress. So y'all, you are like, stressing out, and, like one of you guys mentioned, what's for dinner? Like that is such a stressful question, right?
Not only that, it's pricey.
Yes.
I told somebody today, I said, I want you for 2 weeks, when you go out to eat every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, save those receipts and add that up.
And see how much you're spending. Like make it a real number, not something that you just, because if you're not writing it down, not tracking it, you know what's there. But I think that goes a long way to helping with meal planning and helping to reduce the stress, of financial burden, helping reduce the stress of having to figure it out every day. But just imagine how good, just speaking to the audience too, imagine how good you will feel if you can just go in there and be like, this is what we're eating. Next day, this is what we're eating. This is what we're eating. And you don't even have to worry about cooking that. If you can just find those couple of hours in one day during the week to just prep all of that stuff, it makes such a big difference. Now, Keisha, I wanted to ask you, like, what would you say to someone who says they have no time to plan? Now, we're talking about the deep freezer and things like that, but I know that a lot of participants are really kind of struggling with that. Like, they're so busy, they're balancing a lot of schedules. How do you take the time to plan?
Yeah. What I would say to someone who said they don't have time to plan is, tell them a story. And in 2018, I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. And Aaron knows about this. And, the doctors with my diagnosis, they didn't say, it's because you were eating all those pies and all those carbs and all those sugar. But of course, I fell down a rabbit hole with the diagnosis, and I started reading up a lot about breast cancer and what's the cause. And, they've done research and they've found linkages between women who develop breast cancer and diet. And so I kind of determined that part of the reason that they found a mass in my breast was because of my poor diet habits. Again, and this is all this modern stuff. I remember my cousin saying to me one time, when did you become such a sugar? Because we didn't eat that much sugar growing up. But, it's sugars everywhere now. We can go, that's a whole nother, invite me back for that show, Aaron. But I will tell them. And so here's the thing. I had to make time for surgery. I had to make time for weeks of radiation treatment. I have to make time for the follow-up care. And I'm not saying that if you have a perfect diet that, you will not encounter any health challenges in your life. That's not a given. But they have done the research. And this, Robert, that when you do, have a healthier lifestyle, that your risk for developing diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and all of these other health things is diminished greatly. And so that is what I would say to it. And I know that just maybe sounds like some psychological or just like but that's what I would say. If I could go back and undo some of my earlier eating patterns and habits, I would do that, but I can't.
Mhm.
And so you got to make the time because you're worth it. And because you make the time to do what is good for your health,
Mhm.
or you make the time to go have surgery
Mhm.
and to go through radiation
Right.
and all that good stuff, right?
That's right. And you are worth it. I mean, that's such a key point. You are worth it. Like you have to, and the third part of our this series is going to be all about self-care, because I think it's such an important part of a health journey, because you have to start making yourself a priority. So I'm glad you said that you are worth it. And that's so true, that when you have a diagnosis like that, I mean, that makes you kind of like wake up a little bit, and you realize that, yeah, I had to make time to go. And I will, with my own personal journey, I was diagnosed with breast cancer last May. And you start to realize, like, I realized how much self-care I was not doing. I realized, because the year before I had a child. So, time, and life gets in the way, but then you start not thinking about yourself so much. So it's just so important to just kind of have that reminder to always bring it back to yourself. What you are important, you are important, you are important, you are worth all of this. And rather now take the time to make time for the health, instead of making time for the diseases and the chronic diseases and the doctor visits and the hospitals and all of that stuff. So that's such a great point, Kisa, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. And so when we're talking about like taking the time for meal planning, one of the things that always comes up with some of our participants is that they want to be able to have stuff that's really easy to grab and go. And so what are some ways, Tiffany, that some of our participants can make it easier to eat on the go, and what kind of foods will travel well for that?
So I would say one of the things that I've learned to do too is like order off the kids menu, when you're on the go, instead of, because like you go into restaurants, they give you you look at the kids size, like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot of food, so that's one strategy that I use when I'm eating out. It's like, let me look at the kids menu first, and also, to plan, this week in the change your lifestyle program. I was talking to the participants about that, like planning ahead of time and looking for those restaurants, that have like a Chipotle or something like that, like, or Panera Bread, where you have already in your mind, I know I can get something healthy from this restaurant. So if I'm on the go, then I can easily stop and get something if I need to. Salads, place where there's salads, there's protein, as Robert was saying earlier, like you can get you a good starch, a protein, and you can kind of build your plate around that. But also, things like protein bars, if need be, I always try to keep something like that in my purse. Portion control nuts, and even most convenience stores, sometimes we're out, they'll have yogurt, Greek yogurt you can go in and grab, or even boiled eggs, and most of them will have fruit, some whole fruit. You can get apples and bananas now wrapped up. And so, I think I get it, but I also believe that there's a place sometimes for tough love. Because I believe, when you want something bad enough, or when, you'll make a way for it. You'll make, we make the time to do the things we want to do. We make the time, to do things that are important to us. And if being healthy is important to you and it's up on your list, you'll plan, for those things. And there are so many options now. Like, convenience stores are so much better than they were 10 years ago. The airports, I mean, there's no place that I know you can go and not find something healthy, so.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And those are good suggestions. And I think it's about like just looking for the better option. Instead of the French fries, like even if I'm at the fast food restaurant, instead of the French fries, let me just get the side of fruit. or a little side salad. Like, let me add some nutrients to what I'm going to get, as opposed to just going all out and saying I'm just going to eat the supersize meal,
Right.
And I love the idea about the portion control as well. And you gave some really good examples, and you're right. Like, a lot of the fast food places now offer different things, a variety of things, some healthier things, because people were actually wanting healthier food, because they are convenient. We wanted to be able to actually have healthy food that was convenient too. So it's good to see that they are working towards that. And then you also have like the Chipotles, which is like the fast casual, where now you have these places where you can get food quickly, but they also have an array of like fresh vegetables and things that could go in there, and you can build it yourself instead of it just already being, prepared beforehand. Well, I love those. Thank you so much. You guys, Robert, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh no, that was good. That was spot on. Like, I know Tiffany and I were talking a couple of weeks back. I was like, "What? I didn't know you were doing that." So she knows exactly everything that I'm dealing with now, and that I can't wait to stop dealing with.
Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, you gotta want it for yourself. And I mean, tough love is, and a lot of people don't like tough love, of course. Heck, I don't like tough love. I didn't like when my doctor told me, Robert, you're 29 years old and you're on 4 medications. You're going down the road of you can live, or you're going to have these problems. And so I just feel like if you want something, give it time, and trust the process.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't try to rush everything. Everybody wants to drop 30 pounds like tomorrow.
That's good.
Or next week. Like, it took me 2 years to lose to the 200 pound person. Literally a whole person walked out of my body in 2 years, and I'm fine with that. I didn't rush the process. I didn't. It wasn't perfect, but relax and breathe and enjoy the process, because in the process, you're not only learning, you're growing and you're transforming into the person that you always wanted to become.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really about taking one step at a time, right?
Right.
Like small changes over time and in big results.
Right.
So, and just kind of having that mentality about it helps as well. And so, even when you guys are out there meal planning and trying to get through it and trying to figure out what to eat, like sometimes you have to, as you're getting used to it and you're slowly getting into this whole meal planning thing, maybe some of the frozen food, some of the frozen meals might have to be an option. And again, you're looking just for something that's going to be a little healthier, maybe something that has a little bit more vegetables in it, so that you're not just eating like, the straight up lasagna, which is like cheese and meat. Try to look for some of the ones that are the healthy, the lean cuisines or things like that. But we also, we teach our participants in our lifestyle change program on how to read labels.
Right.
So you kind of understand, you can start reading the labels on those and figure out which ones are going to be healthier.
Right.
I think it's a matter of kind of, again, getting rid of that all or nothing attitude and just figuring out what can work for you for the time being until you can kind of get through this hump. And then you can do another change, later on.
And I never thought about that. Ordering the kids. That's a great tip, because I would almost got in trouble in a restaurant because they're like, "Sir, you're not a kid." I said, "Yeah, I'm ordering my son 2 meals. He's hungry." So I had to kind of fudge the truth a little bit, because I'm like,
because I'm gonna get this kid's meal.
It's true. When you order one meal at these restaurants now, and you look at these plates, I'm like, this is it. I mean, that's a lot for one person.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes my wife and I go out, she laughs at me. She said, "So Rob, you gonna order for your imaginary child?" I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna order because he's coming out the bathroom soon, so I'm gonna order for him." I gotta play a little bit, because like the kids' food is now an adult size food, like back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the adult size food is meant for like 2 or 3 people. It's like, no wonder why, it's hard now,
No wonder. Yeah, I treated myself, y'all, to a restaurant. I won't say who it is, the other night. And I lie to you not, 4 meals, 1 entree.
Yeah.
I ate some that night because my husband was out, took some to lunch the next day. And since I ate it 3 times, and I know there's some still upstairs. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And one thing you can do is just when you get that meal is like, just immediately ask for a to-go box and put most of it in there and just eat what you need for the time being, you know?
Well, I brought it home. And so this kind of goes with meal planning. And I did immediately, you know, I had my little glass thingies, little containers with the little snap tops. And I was able to, because it was heavy. I was like, oh, this is heavy. Heavy. And so and so that was a good feeling, though, because, you know, just even eating out nowadays is like close your eyes if you're going to eat out or go grocery shopping, because the prices are just going, you're going to want to faint. Right. And so it made it like, okay, well, I got a lot out of this, you know, so it costs, but I got a lot of different meals out of it. I wanted to just kind of piggyback on what Tiffany was saying about the nutrition bars and all of that kind of stuff, having those ready. But I think part of the planning, and especially for men too, is having receptacles. What's the word? Something to put it in. So for an example, when I know that I'm going to be traveling for work and I don't have time to, I'm on the road, commuting, going to some different places other than my base office, and I'm not going to have my typical lunch that I like to carry, because a lot of times I will bring a salad, like the meal I had picked up the other night. It had a salad again, got several salads out of that one salad, even a salad. And so you're not going to take that. But then, so I don't want to take my big, and I was going to bring some show and tells, but I was running late. But have like something to put your things in. Like I like to eat the mandarin oranges, but if you're trying to take those on the go and you're trying to take 3 of them, you know, the little bitty ones, well, then sometimes you'll get discouraged because you're like, that's kind of cumbersome, you know, and just throwing. But I have a little pouch that it's my little snack pouch, and it stays in my kitchen. And when I'm going to be out running errands or something, and I don't want to slide into McDonald's, right, not even for a kid's meal, I'll fill that. It, you know, boiled egg can go in there. You can put your snack bar in there. You can put your nuts. I put nuts in little. I have these little. I bought those years ago. Little from probably the dollar store. They're little. I meant to bring show and tells. Everybody knows though. They're just a little square, and you can put almonds in there and put your little top on there and throw it in your pouch and throw it in your purse or throw it on the seat in your car. So that's all part of the planning. Having what do you know, help me, the little, not receptacles, but just having stuff.
Containers.
That
having the right containers to put things in is so important. That's all part of that. That's part of the planning and the preparation. You know.
So, and Jennifer in the chat just said snack size Ziploc bags too. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I know I want to leave some time for some questions from our audience. But Robert, you did mention like you have your son in the kitchen meal planning. So we're focused on trying to get, you know, the family involved. I think a great way to get the family involved is to start with the kids. They're a little bit easier to kind of mold, I would say, than like a spouse. And, you know, I think about with the kids being in the kitchen, like, can you imagine if all of us kind of started that way and knew how to do this stuff early on, how much better off we would be now? So I know you mentioned your son preps with you. How old is he?
5 years old.
5? Okay. So is he in there kind of chopping up stuff too with you?
Yes. And I'm a clean person. Like, so it took me a minute to let him chop some stuff up. And you know, my wife's like, we don't have to clean all the time. Like me, I'll get down on my hands and knees and clean the quarter rounds and get on the floors. Like I like dust and all that. So I had to come up with a strategy. I'm like, okay, let me think about this. All right, son, you want to prep? Let me get you an apron. Let me get your glove. Let me get you. I got my little apron with little pockets in it and some toddler knives and some spoons and some other essentials. So every time I'm in the kitchen prepping, he knows I'm about to prep. When I take the skillets out and my food out, he's like, "Dad, prep time." I'm like, "Yep, let's go." Apron. You get in the apron, and he can put the seasoning inside his apron. I'm like, all right, give me the garlic, give me the onion. So at first it was messy because he just dumped everything in there. I'm like, dude, we just wasted a whole bottle of garlic. It's gonna be garlic. But over time, he's learning to like, okay, just a little bit of this, and he'll taste it. He said, that's good. I was like, yep, there we go. It tastes good. Okay, add a little more if you want some. So I'm just teaching him everything that I didn't learn because I don't like cooking. My wife's a chef. Me, on the other hand, if I can pay somebody to cook for us, I would in a heartbeat.
Me too.
But I see the benefits. I want to get him to that age of, okay, when he gets on his own, this is what you can prep for yourself. When you get to college, depending on if you have a scholarship. If you want to go to college, up to you. But I want him to learn how to survive.
Yes.
And how to eat. Because, yes, everything's going up now. But you can get a bag of sweet potatoes or a bag of potatoes for $2 or $3 versus buying French fries, something like that, fast food. So I take him to the store with me. I show him how to pick ripe fruits and vegetables, watermelon.
Yes.
And so it's in the past, I was like, my wife, I want you to take him with you. I'm like, yeah, I'm on a routine, babe. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna take him with me. And it's every time I'm going to go shopping for prep, he's studying. He's always watching everything because kids are sponges. They'll absorb everything.
Yeah, I mean that's such a great way to get him involved. I love that. Well, for the sake of time, we're just out of time. We are going to wrap this up because I want to make sure everybody's watching now. We're being cognizant of your time as well, because this was only supposed to be an hour, and of course we could talk forever about this.
Okay.
So if you guys do have some questions that came up, I'm going to encourage you to download the BWHI app. And then what you can do is if you join the Healthy Eating with Dish Diva community, you can actually post your questions in there and I will be able to answer them. And all the coaches have access to that as well. So we can all pitch in and answer questions for you. But I do want to say to thank you guys for joining me today. This was an awesome conversation. And hopefully we'll be able to do it again. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And to everyone else that's watching, either live or on the replay, I hope that some of these ideas can help work for you in your household. Meal planning is a little overwhelming, but as you find your rhythm, it does become a little bit more, it becomes easier, right? You do it more consistently. And overall, it's such a good tool when you're looking to achieve some health goals. And if you're interested in diving deeper, I will be holding a meal planning challenge in the BWHI app. And if you haven't already downloaded, do it now. And make sure you join that Healthy Eating with Dish Diva community because the challenge will take place in there. And it begins on Monday, September 26th. And it basically breaks down meal planning into smaller achievable steps. So at the end of the challenge, you'll be able to put together all the steps together so you can just start meal planning like a champ. All right. So next week, during part 2 of this series, I'll be talking to Sally Sampson, the founder of the national nonprofit Chop Chop Family. And then Chef Tobias Cooks, a kitchen diva from our partner organization, Black Women for Wellness, will be in the kitchen teaching us how to meal plan with the family. Her kids will be involved with the prepping that she's doing as well. So stay tuned for more great information on how to get the family involved in meal planning. So thank you guys. Thank you. And I will see you next Saturday.
Thank you, Erin.
Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon and weekend.